Hey everyone, I am so excited to see you all today. Yes, this is SexualiTea. I am Mixed Pucks of Plenty, aka Kia, and we're going to get started in just a moment. I'm going to bring in Mia Fine, the other half of this dynamic duo, and we will get started with today's topic. Invite has been sent. I hope everyone's doing well today. Yes, yes, yes. All right. There is Mia right there. And we got that. And we're...
Hi,
Hi!
good to see
How are
you.
you? It's good to see you. All right. It
Here,
looks like your internet is catching up, so I will give it a second. It is thinking.
good. Oh, can can you hear me? The
The,
connection
the
okay?
connection
Sorry,
is very choppy.
isn't it choppy? Maybe I'll maybe I'll hang up and try again. Let me try again.
Yeah, let's have...
Okay.
Well, have you hang up and try again. Yeah, let's totally do that. All right. And we're going to... Technical difficulties and the internets. Oh, the internets. All right. Let's try this again. Boom. All right. Is that
Okay.
better?
Let's see. Can you hear
Yeah,
me all
that's
right?
better. I can. It's much better. Yes.
Technical difficulties. I love it. It's part of the game here while we're navigating online life and navigating Zoom and all of it. So yeah, and especially I think at this time we might be heading into technical stuff. But anyway, we're here now. How's it going, Kia?
It is going good. How about with yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. Busy day, but really glad to be here with you, my friend. So glad to be
Absolutely.
here. Yeah. How's your day going?
Day is going pretty good. I speaking of service, right? Because today's topic is service submission. Um, uh, I have a partner. I have two partners that I live with, and both of them are service orientated humans. And so this morning, one of them graciously videoed one of my acts for me as I pranced
Oh,
around at 10:30 this morning, trying to get it done before it got too hot to record things.
I
So
love it. Oh,
yeah,
that is
learning new
wonderful.
skills.
Yes, that is what it's about. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Well, good to see you as always, and thank you folks for joining us.
Yes.
Key and I do sexuality every other Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and so excited to have this conversation about service sub. And why don't we jump in? I'd love to ask you, like, what's your definition of service submission in the context of BDSM, and how do you see that?
I mean, I
Defined.
look at in terms of my usage of service has mostly been through a BDSM lens,
Mm,
um, and just it's for me it's what an S type or submissive um, typically contributes in terms of resources and time
yeah.
and energy to a D type or a dominant. Um, Wikipedia,
Okay.
thank God for Wikipedia, right? Their definition of it is a lot more straightforward and less and ahs. But to them, it's in human sexuality, service orientated is a term used in the BDSM community to refer to a relationship dynamic where the focus is on how the submissive can contribute resources to a dominant partner and provide some of their needs or advance their goals. So, that's very technical, and it could mean very little or a whole lot depending on the dynamic and what is consented upon. So, it's I think service submission and service orientated are some very it's a very interesting. Oh, I'm here. I see that you're just loading and loading and loading on my end. Do you want to try logging back in
Hey
again?
Kia, I think your connection is a little choppy. I'm not sure if it's my connection or your connection.
Oh, okay. Which is very well possible. Give
Um,
me one moment. Let me see if I can
okay.
fix it real quick.
And joining us in
Better.
this conversation. Is that better? Okay. We're just
It's
having
yeah, is that better for you?
it is, yeah, I can totally hear
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we were talking about the kind of the difference between what you were sharing the Wikipedia definition, and I love that definition about offering resources to the dominant partner to advance goals, and how that actually does sound like it super aligns with S type, submissive type, and D type, dominant type, which is how you were defining that before. So I
yeah.
think it sounds like pretty in line. Um, and then what are like we have some examples of types of service that are often seen in under that umbrella of BDSM.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at as like something as simple as like almost like a personal secretary, right? So this is someone that's taking calls, answering the door, responding to emails, scheduling, coffee fetching, right? So that's a form of service. You have a
Uh-huh.
service top, which is probably one of my favorites, right? And this is when the owner is a masochist, it may be requested that the submissive learn play activities to service the top.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay.
so that's a lot of fun.
And what Key is talking about here with top is a top is somebody who does something to another person. So it's not necessarily a dominant and submissive DS. D for dominant, S for submissive is about the power exchange. And a top and a bottom, that dynamic or role is really about a person either doing something to somebody else or someone having something be done to them, which is a bottom. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
typically refer to that as the wielder and the wieldee, right? The
Oh,
person wielding the instrument or the action, and someone that is receiving um, the implement or the action, right? So the
I love
wielder
it.
and the wieldee, right?
Wilder and
Um,
Wildy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for your top and bottom situation. Yeah, submissive, like dominant and submissive are not necessarily interchangeable with top and bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something to, depending on who you're talking to keep in mind. Because if you call a particular person a top and they're really a dominant in certain social situations, that could be really frowned upon.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's like identity, right?
Yeah.
Identity and also role. You said something a couple minutes ago about like the personal secretary, and it reminded me of that movie, The Secretary. Have you ever seen that?
It's one of my favorites, and I know that it definitely has some problematic things, which is like
Yeah.
basically if you go and look at any movie that you loved in the past decade or so, you're just like, what even
No,
is
I know.
life?
Oh, it's
But I
true.
mean, it's that movie has such weird sexual energy, and I mean, I still can't look at a red Sharpie the same way, right?
Never
Like,
again.
right,
Yeah.
it's and that is that personal kind of that personal secretary vibe even taken even further, right? That's how it gets
Absolutely.
started, is him being extremely anal retentive about the way things were done. And then we saw some topping from the bottom in that, where
Yep.
she starts intentionally misspelling words to make play happen or make these situations happen. So
Absolutely. And as like and that brings up a sadist versus masochist, right?
hmm
And the awareness that sadism is not necessarily about pain. It's about intense sensation. And
yes.
oftentimes people get that kind of incorrect is that, oh, is it, it's got to be about pain. You don't necessarily have to enjoy pain to be a sadist or masochist. That very much is about intense sensation. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's
And I would
it's a fun
also,
movie.
it is, and I'd also would would venture to say that when we start talking about S&M, right, that like your mental state, right, like, mind fucks, for example, right, like that is a form of S&M, and you can cause intense sensation through, mental and psychological play. So, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's where
humiliation play kind of falls into that umbrella, right?
totally.
Um,
Yeah. And we'll do a sexuality on humiliation play too. So yeah,
Absolutely, because
absolutely.
it's a fun one to unpack. Um, Body servant. So this is bathing, shaving, grooming, overall healthcare of a dominant. And this actually reminds me of something that I really want to learn how to do. I really want to learn how to do straight razor shaves, right?
Ooh,
Right.
yeah.
And I am definitely a D type, but there is something wicked intense and wicked powerful about a straight, that straight shaver that I'm just
Yeah.
like, could you imagine being a super sadist and that's your jam, and then that person knows how into knives you are, and then you just give them a absolutely normal straight shave?
You're kind of like on that edge, right? The entire time of what is about to happen. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love
Right?
that so much.
Isn't
And the
that hot?
sensation, that is super hot. And so the
Right?
sensation too of putting like the shaving cream on and what that can contribute to and like
Oh
lead
yeah.
up to. Yeah. And the smells and all of those senses working at once. I love that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's really
Mm,
dope. So
yeah.
that's definitely something to think about, body servant, right?
Yeah.
There is a an amazing educator. I have to find her name and I will share it. She taught a class on objectification, but it was specifically a lot of the things we talked about was body service
Mm,
and like grooming, personal grooming, shaving, bathing, and that kind of thing. And then, like, what was really super amazing is that she talked about modifications for folks that had disabilities to be able to serve their
yeah.
partners in that way. So I was like, more of
Beautiful.
that, please,
I
right?
love that. I love that so much. Yeah.
And our fourth one is escort, right? So like social elite with the ability to bring attention to your owner, chat up
Mm.
about all sorts of world topics and look beautiful. Conversationalists, right? Um, I think about, you think about um, concubines, right? And you think about courtesans. You think about how
Mm.
these women were really, really, really smart and really, really like well versed in the art of the conversation, and being witty and knowing the politics of the time and stuff like that, because it made these men look good to have a very, very smart woman on their arm
Mm.
who was extremely beautiful, that it was kind of the general assumption was are paying
Mm.
top dollar to have this person, but this person is completely engaged in making them look better just through the way that, not only the way that she looks, but also her ability to keep up in conversation and contribute to the conversation. So, I mean, don't discount arm candy, like,
Yes.
and being
Yeah.
good arm candy. I pride
And
myself on being good arm candy.
I think it's lovely. It's one of I think those like hot experiences that you can have without it having to go anywhere else necessarily, right? Like if you are, dressed to like and feeling erotic, that can in and of itself be an experience. And oftentimes people think that like a scene has to be more than that, or it has to that can in and of itself have that peak experience. So like I think, well, anyway, I could talk about
Yeah,
that for hours. Yeah.
I know, it's so
Um,
good.
it is
It's
good.
really,
It's
it's
really
so
fun.
good, right?
Right.
And it's such a good deep dive. And like you're talking about, like in terms of what a scene is or isn't, right? Like, you have so much more power than you think.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and you can totally have a scene that does not violate the consent of others and still be the hottest experience that you've ever had. And I truly feel like this escort conversationalist um, service is super duper dope and a really good one for folks to explore, especially if you're thinking about how to expand and explore service in your dynamic. It's a
Mm,
really good one to look at.
yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but yeah, and and let's see. This was really good, right? Subdominant power dynamics versus an independent scene, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. So that one,
yes.
I love that piece because oftentimes folks have a preconceived notion that they have to enter into a full-on dynamic when they may not, that may not be kind of what they're into. And so the invitation is that you can have a subdom dynamic, you can have a relationship, and you can also have a scene through which you get to play these roles that are really fun. I was working with some folks who really wanted to try out the DS dynamic, but they didn't want to go into like a full-on relationship around it. And so they wanted to do so they started off doing some kitchen cleaning. And one of the partners dressed in like very erotic clothes and was instructed by the other partner, this is what I want you to wear. And, this is all pre-negotiated. This is what I want you to wear. And then they had this full-on beautiful erotic scene of one of them, of the one who was the sub, cleaning the entire kitchen. And they made it into this like kind of boring household chore, boring household task into a really erotic experience. And that was the scene, right? And
I'm
so
here
they've
for
got
that.
this like, right? They've got this like awesome clean kitchen, and they got to like test and tease and play and have this really fun experience together without jumping full on into a dynamic. So again, an invitation to check that, like you can have that independent scene, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and that's service, right? That it's
That's
definitely
service.
a service.
Yeah.
It's definitely making utilizing the resources that you have available to you to enhance the dominance world and experience.
Yeah.
Also, it's hot. Like that's that's the best part. It's hot.
It's
Like no,
hot.
here for
Right.
that. Clean kitchen and it's hot.
Totally.
Yay! Like that
Absolutely.
speaks
Right.
to my heart. Um, okay. I like this. I really like this particular thing that we're going to get into because I think it's really interesting in terms of type of service. Several years ago, I attended Kinkfest for the very first time. It was back in 2014 for me, and I attended a class on artful service. And the teacher of this class, believe her name is Miss Amy Red. She is super dope. But this class was phenomenal. But she talked about different types of service, not services or like the individual like tasks, right? But different types of service. And one of them that she talked about was proactive service. And proactive
Mm.
service is designed around the idea that the Dom trains the sub in what the Dom needs, right? What his needs are, what their wants are, what their desires are, and this is so in the manner in which they want them fulfilled, right? So this is all about training, designing all of that, putting that all together. And so that the submissive has that baseline of this is how my Dom likes their coffee, this is how my Dom likes their shoes shined. My Dom is terrible about checking their email, so this is how I'm going to take care of that. Like they
Mm.
have that whole
Mm-hmm.
full scope. Um,
Mm.
Reactive service focuses on the immediate obedience, right? So this is the S type does exactly what they were told to do, not a single thing more, and
Mm.
they don't do anything unless they are told to do something. So I typically find this like when you're like, I see this a lot in like when you're at a club or like a dungeon or something like that, and a dom is like, go grab water.
Mm-hmm.
Water's grabbed, here it is. Go grab the toy bag. They're not stopping to chit chat with people. They're not grabbing snacks
Sure.
on the way. They're going to grab just the toy bag. So,
It's like
and
an
this is
individual instruction.
absolutely, and this is something
Yeah.
that I feel like when folks are just getting started with service, it's more of the reactive service at first as these two are trying to figure out what is going to work
Ah,
for
yeah.
them. Um, and also like when of course like when you are out in like a more of a public situation, right? So this is pretty dope,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
definitely worth exploring. And then anticipatory service, I think, is where we start getting into kind of the artful nature of service too. um, this is the sub is thinking about the next need, the next want, the next desire of the Dom
Mm.
before the Dom knows that they have the need, the want, or the desire. And this
Mm.
is like, this I think can become a tricky one for a lot of folks. Um, I'll give an example of this, and it's not meant to, I don't mean to gender folks or things like that, but this has been my experience. I typically host a femdom tea. So we have all femme or femme-centered folks who are being served, and then usually have a mixed group of falling on different ends of the gender spectrum who want to provide service.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've noticed is we've a few times have had all femme or femme-centered servers, and what ends up happening is kind of this. So I call it the beverage fairy. You don't know how things happened, but they happened, and it's just kind of this
Mm.
weird energy of, well, the beverage fairy handled that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how this happened. We did a party that was like a picnic, and like all femme-centered staff, and like again, it was just like this kind of weird. Trash was picked up without people asking for it.
Uh-huh.
Refills of drinks without people asking for it. Just kind of this organic thing happened of that. And it's not to say that I think that male or mellow-centered folks are incapable of anticipatory service. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's more reactive service is probably going to happen at first
Mm.
to
Mm-hmm.
get our male-centered submissives kind of into that anticipatory service vibe. And I
Yeah.
think maybe it's just because femmes are socialized to put the needs of others ahead of their own.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
it's easier to get into that headspace. If you're raised to be a people pleaser, and doesn't matter what you have going on between your legs or not, right? I think I feel very strongly that it makes you a little bit more, gives you more of an edge with anticipatory service
Mm.
because you were socialized to be a people pleaser. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
and I think that's a really good point. That idea that maybe there is some gender, like the basically if you're raised to be a certain gender throughout your life, um, that it has an effect, right? Is it
mhm.
are males are folks who are more mask of center, like more reactive, right? Do they need to be told more of an explicit cue to get something done or have that immediate obedience versus folks who are more femme of center with the
Yeah.
anticipatory service? Yeah, that, I mean, it resonates with me. It makes a lot of sense um, over in the therapy world, in my
Yeah.
brain anyway.
It's something that
Yeah.
I definitely would
Mm.
like to explore in like a workshop or class, I think at some point, because it's really such an interesting like thought problem. Like in a lot
Right.
of ways. Like it's
Yeah.
really interesting thing to kind of think about, and how do we get to that point?
Right. How do we
And which I've
conceptualize? Hmm.
absolutely
Yeah.
it's just something to think about in terms of if you are a D type who maybe struggles with receiving service. I think it's
Hmm.
and this is a thing. Like this was part of one of the things that in this artful service class I took that a lot of D types talked about how they struggle with receiving certain types of service.
Hmm.
Um, the sexual service, especially for male or mass centered folks, might be a little bit easier for them because well, we're doing the sexy time thing. This makes
Yeah.
sense, but
Direct.
like,
Very
right,
direct. Yeah.
right, but like this
Yeah.
idea of like, they're submissive, checking their mail and picking up their dry cleaning and making sure that like the type of beer that they like is in the refrigerator, and
Sure.
or them just kind of knowing that when they have a really bad day, the thing that perks them up the most is like the certain type of dark chocolate they saw them eat this one time, right? Like that kind of thing. It might
Yeah.
be hard for them to
Mm.
accept, and so that was kind of an
Hmm.
interesting thing. It's service is like so vast and so deep, and there's so many different realms to it. And if, like I said, if you are a D type, you need to learn how to accept service, especially if you're dealing with a submissive that is a service type, because that is a service that you're providing to them, being able to receive that service. And,
right. And
I'm
I
looking
think you
you all
into,
dead in the eye when I say this.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I think I mean, that bodes that question of what people are getting out of it, right? What do D types get out of service, and same for folks who are S types, D type dominant, S type submissive, for folks who are just joining us, and there's a variety, right? And we can kind of talk about a couple of those. I know I'm mindful of our time, but I want to just kind of shed light on the fact that it's very unique. And every person is going to have a unique what they get out of it, and that may change depending on the scene too. You know, on a Monday they might be, and if somebody's a switch too, they might switch from wanting to be more of a D type or feeling more S typey. So it's like an appetite rather than necessarily an identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I encourage that in therapy for folks to play with that, right? You're not married to an identity or a role. You can switch things up, and we have freedom to do that. And it's a lot of fun to play with certain roles and step out of your comfort zone, even within that kink dynamic, or even within the kink, the expression that you have. You can play with it. You're not tied to anyone necessarily, not tied to unless you've negotiated that like ahead of time. Little tying pun.
Yes. So what do folks get out of providing service? And I think this is very interesting to folks who just don't get it, don't understand it. And I've noticed this pop up a lot with like D types. D types especially are folks that don't really engage in the power dynamic aspect of BDSM. They're there for more of the top and bottoming energy. They're more for the S&M and less of the DS, right? And this is actually how I like flag potential partners. Usually, is I'll ask them like, "Are you more interested in the S&M or are you more interested in the DS?" And usually, I will back burner folks that say they're more interested in the S&M, because for me, what I'm hearing is that they're more interested in the topping and bottoming and having things done to them, versus the DS, which is more of the power, is the power exchange portion, which part of my power exchange involves the S&M. But if you are more of a service-oriented person, I notice that those folks tend to gravitate more towards the DS and the power exchange.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I wonder if we should map that out at some point and kind of have a visual of what that looks like. Yeah. Oh, we should totally do that. That sounds like a lot of fun to map out the variations there.
Yeah, it's very interesting to be able to learn how to communicate what you are looking for just in general. For a partner is always important, but like when we start getting into it's just like erotic mismatch, right? Like when we start getting into this, I started dating a D type, and like they're just the worst D type, and you're just like, okay, why were they the worst D type? And it's just like, well, they expected me to clean their gutters. And you're like, all right. And did they say that was a service that you're providing for them? Well, yeah. It sounds like you guys weren't on the same page about what DS is, and in terms of power exchange versus, you just want to be tied up and hit. Like, and that's completely valid. Completely valid
just not
thing
your
to
primary.
want.
Right.
Yeah, that just may not. This may not be the relationship for you, and I think that's like making sure that we're coming from we're clear on what we're asking for and what we want. But some things that folks can get out of, folks get from providing services, play for service, right? So it's like, I provided this service, and as a reward for this service, they tied me up. We did some edging. I got to get flogged, and then there was aftercare, and it was super great. So there's that, right? Service is part of a power exchange dynamic. and we've been kind of touching on that a lot too. This is just how the relationship works, in terms of the service is provided, they feel good because they're providing the service, and the dominant is, their world is improving, which makes them happier, which makes them happier with their sub, which makes this whole thing kind of organically continue to work, right? Everyone's happy. It's kind of that if mama's not happy, no one's happy kind of thing. Like,
Right.
it's that kind of energy, right?
Right.
Um,
And it's supposed to be
it's
fun and play,
absolutely,
and that fun and play can vary, but that's the whole point of kink and BDSM is it's supposed to be fun and play.
yeah.
So, yeah. Are you open, Kia, to sharing like what your current dynamics are as we kind of wrap up with our episode?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have, I state that I have 4.5 partners.
Mm-hmm.
I am currently separated from one of my partners, but I have 4 partners, and 2 of them
Mm-hmm.
are live-in. And both of my live-in partners are service-centered humans.
Mm-hmm.
One of my partners would probably tell you that they don't feel that they're submissive. I think that's incorrect. But they're still learning. Like, they're still, like, I would just be like, you're very submissive, but that's cool.
Yeah.
But
That's
my
how
other
you
part,
you see them. They don't see
I,
themselves as that way. Yeah.
I don't think they see themselves as dominant either. I don't think they
Ah,
see themselves as anything quite yet. They've
okay.
been kind of actively getting into this whole thing, over the past year, and they're still trying to find themselves.
Yeah.
Um, but my other partner, we've been together for 3 years, and it started out the gate as a service, situation,
Mm-hmm.
and now we live together. So,
Mm.
and like an example of the service is we just moved into a new house, at the beginning of last month. And yesterday was like crunch time. Like, we have too many boxes in the living room. There's no furniture in our living room. It's a mess. And I was like, it's getting done today. And so part of this is my boy is what I call him.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday he put together like 3 or 4 bookshelves, and like broke down a bunch of boxes. We emptied boxes. He went to the store. He ran one of the other partners to work. Like, he was just providing so much service yesterday. And at the end of the day, we're sitting on the couch, and he's just like, did I do good? And I'm like, oh my God, absolutely, you did
Mm.
good today. You did
Mm.
fabulous today. And he's
Yeah.
just like, he goes, I have no energy. I have no energy to be rewarded right now. And I'm like, well, you can get rewarded tomorrow if you are so
Aw.
inclined. And
Aw.
his reward is to provide a sexual service to me. So
Mm.
I'm like, okay, this is going to work out just fine for everybody involved. I'm really glad that your reward for putting together furniture and putting in a 10-hour day yesterday is me getting pleasured too.
Yeah.
So yay.
Yeah.
Right. So
Well,
that
it
really
sounds like,
works.
yeah, your boy gets pleasure out of pleasuring you, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
It
Oh,
is.
I
It's
love
a
it.
great thing. And
Yeah.
then my other partner, who's not quite sure how he identifies, he is okay with being called a service daddy.
Mm-hmm.
So we've
Okay.
discovered that. So he has a lot of daddy type tendencies in terms of like, fetching. I get a sippy cup at night, so I have my
Mm-hmm.
whole sippy cup situation.
Yeah.
Um, he makes sure that like if I have shoes that have buckles, he bends down and he buckles the shoes.
Oh,
All this
yeah.
kind of stuff, which could be perceived as me being the submissive type, depending on who is viewing that. Um,
Mm.
but it's like I'm not the one getting out of bed at 12:30, in the morning to go and grab a bag of chips at night.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So like that is where the line is drawn,
And that
and
is
all of
more the
that.
power dynamic versus top and bottom, which you could be the bottom in that dynamic as well, in that,
Yeah.
for your partner getting the chips. So, yeah. Ah, I love it. This is so great. Any last words or anything else that might be helpful to share? I know
I mean, I
go ahead.
oh yeah, we were kind of cut because we had some technical difficulties, and we do like
Yeah.
to be mindful of people's time with us. Um, if you are someone that is feeling submissive, you're thinking submission is calling to you. This is a thing. I invite you to really sit and think about what it is that you were expecting and wanting to get. Like, what are your desires from that dynamic? And being able to write those down or being able to articulate those, especially when you start the search for maybe a potential partner, is going to be really important. And there's so much lingo, right? But I think it's really important to have some general ideas of what some of that lingo may mean. So when you're talking to folks, everyone's coming from the same place in terms of what this word means to you. Because I think, I think probably a lot of my vision of this is through, the femdom community, and it just feels like there's an overabundance of massive center submissives that feel like there aren't enough, femdoms to go around. Or that they feel like the femdoms in this community, in different communities, aren't true femdoms because of what their expectations are based off of what they've either read or seen in porn or what have you. So I definitely invite folks to really sit and think about, especially if you are leaning towards an S-type, what type of S-type are you hoping to be? Because I think that if some folks dug a little deeper, they'd realize that they're not necessarily wanting the power exchange. They want something done to them. Which, again, not a problem. There's a lot of people who don't want the weight of the power exchange and are more than glad to just do the thing to you. But you need to be able to properly communicate that.
Yeah. Like that primary this is the action that I'd like. I want something done to me, or I want to do something, versus the power dynamic. So is it primary? Is it secondary? Right? Is it tertiary? Right? And for you, it sounds like that's super clear. So I love that invitation. That's a beautiful invitation. And then also, like, when it comes to the scene, what kind of mood do you want? Right? Like, what's the mood that, anyway, but that's our negotiation one, which is, I think our negotiation's coming up in like a month or so. And our next one is compersion and jealousy. And that one is in just a few weeks. When is it? The 19th.
19th. Yes.
On the 19th of August. As always, folks, you're welcome to DM Kia and I, ask us some questions. Let us know if there are certain topics that you'd like us to cover. We've got a whole list of really cool topics coming up in the next X amount of time, as long as we've got to do this. Kia, it's always an effing pleasure talking with you. I absolutely adore you, my friend. You are rad. And you look so handsome right now.
Thank you. God, look at the shirt. Do you see the shirt? It says Social Justice Rogue. By any means necessary. This is I feel very powerful in this shirt, as a nerd and as a social justice human. Also, if you want to support us some more, we have we're going to be doing our more extended, longer podcast coming up on August 22nd, and that's a Saturday. And so we're going to be the nightcap to a burlesque show that's happening digitally called No Closet Follies, Volume 3, which is a kink and BDSM themed show starring the golden goddess of burlesque, Egypt Black Nile, also featuring the luminous pariah. So you got to come check that out. Tickets are on sale for that now. And then for our very first full-length podcast, we're going to have Seattle's own Miss Brickhouse with us, talking about all kinds of sex magic and all that kind of fun stuff. So I invite you so much. Yay! 50th birthday. What?
Yay!
Okay. So yeah, I mean, definitely check this out. And follow and support.
Oh, so, Erin, happy birthday, our friend. That's Erin at Paneros. Yes, that's awesome.
Yes, we love that.
It's going to be so much fun, and Miss Brickhouse is incredible. What a goddess. It's going to be such a great podcast. So please join us. Send us slide into our DMs if you've got any questions or comments or any of that fun stuff. And we're here to support and be of service in our educator with our educator hats on.
Absolutely.
All right, friends. All right, Kia, I'll talk to you soon. And thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Yes. Bye, everybody.